Attention Tribe. Ready to take charge of your future in the trucking industry? Ready to take charge of your future in the trucking industry?
Powered by
Join us for CMC Live at the Mid-America Trucking Show, March 26th and 27th in Louisville, Kentucky. Led by Kevin Rutherford, CMC Live delivers actionable insights and real-world solutions designed to help you transform your business. From cutting-edge strategies to hands-on advice, this is the event that puts you in the driver's seat of success.
Don't miss this life-changing experience. Don't miss this life-changing experience.
Be unstoppable.
CMC Live.
March 26th and 27th at the Mid-America Trucking Show in Louisville, Kentucky. Register now at truckingshow.com. Register now at truckingshow.com.
Your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It's Tuesday, January 14th. No matter how many times I say that, I have to look at the date every day or I would have no idea what today is. It is the 14th. It's time for the Power Hour. We've got the team here from Pittsburgh Power, and we're going to be taking your questions and answering your calls about everything maintenance. So jump in and join us. Phone lines are open, 855-950-3835. I have a couple of announcements, and then we will get to the team and hear what is on their mind, and then we will get to your calls and questions. So we've got some specials going on in the store. Remember, that's how we, no, maybe not specials, new products. That's how we fund everything else we do. This show is free. We do webinars for free. If you haven't joined me on my new early morning show, 7 a.m., it's only available on our tribe website, which is letstrucktribe.com. We do charge $3 a month for that site. That's just to keep the riffraff out and stop trolls, and it works really well. So the morning show's kind of fun. Nothing is scheduled. Nothing is planned. We might talk about anything and everything. This morning, I talked about how ignorant and harmful the price gouging laws are out in LA with the fires going on. And we also talked about what movie I should watch this year, because I usually only average about one movie a year. I don't have a recommendation yet that I'm going to watch, so I'm still waiting for one. If I only watch one movie a year, I want it to be really, really good, and that's about all I ever watch. I talked about my dreams. I'm working on my sleep, and this is the most major change I've had in my sleep in the last long time. My sleep started getting really screwed up when I was doing the midnight show on that other platform. I forget their name. I think they put satellites up in the sky or something. When I was doing the midnight show there, my sleep got all screwed up, and I haven't been able to fix it since. And I have done enough research on sleep that I could write the book, and maybe I should. I think I might have made some breakthroughs. I'll tell you what, though, it's not easy. Took a lot of stuff, and I'm not even sure exactly what worked this time. I got to go back and look and see what I've done differently. I've added a couple different supplements and some red light therapy and a couple other things, but here's what's occurring with my sleep. It's really short, 4 hours and 46 minutes, I think, has been my average over the last 2 weeks, less than 5 hours. But I sleep so much better during that time, even though I'm still waking up more than I want to. That's improving a little bit each day. But what's happening is I am getting a really good amount of deep sleep, and it may be the deepest sleep I have ever experienced. It's usually about an hour. And that's a big percentage of, if you're only getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep, having a full hour of that kind of deep sleep is incredible. And a lot of REM sleep, and my dreams. I've never had dreams like this in my life. Vivid, real life. I remember them when I wake up. And there always seems to be one main character from real life in my dreams. So far, I've had John Krasinski, the actor, Kamala, Wojtek, one of our regular callers. That was just a short one. Don't worry, Wojtek. I'm not dreaming about you. Just really vivid, lifelike dreams that I wake up and remember. Never dreamt like this before. So something is going on with my sleep, and I'm in almost 2 weeks of this pattern, and the sleep gets a little better every night, just not getting any longer. And I have amazing amounts of energy with this length of sleep. So I'm just going to embrace it for now and see what happens. All of my biomarkers are good. Blood pressure's fine. HRV is actually getting better. That's a really good sign. Blood sugar's getting even better than it was, because probably the only thing that was messing with my blood sugar was the poor sleep. So I know they say it's not healthy to sleep that short. I think they're wrong. Like, they've been wrong about many things. If I slept longer, it would be okay, but I'm not. My sleep is just getting so much better. So I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to use that time because I got a lot of projects to work on. So the new product we have in the store, we have a new deodorant, and this product comes from Enviromedica. We have 3 new products from them. I've talked a lot about the other products on my member only show. I may talk about some here, but not today. So just know that we've got a really great new mineral-based deodorant. So it's got magnesium in it, and you actually absorb magnesium right through your skin, and other minerals that are in there. So it's like a supplement deodorant. Pretty crazy stuff. Smells amazing and works great. So check that out. Also, CMC. We're starting a countdown. It is now 71 days to the 2025 CMC that we are kicking off at Matt's, the Mid-America Truck Show in Louisville, at the end of March, 71 days from now. And then we will continue the CMC with the year-long virtual webinar that I do every other week for an entire year. 2 hours of webinar every other week for an entire year. We're in the middle, we're coming up on the end of that program now. So if we've got 71 days left, that would probably be maybe 10 weeks. So if I only have 5 or 6 sessions left, I gotta rewrite my end and get this thing all wrapped up. Make sure I got all my material out. So get signed up for the CMC. You can go to our website and find out more. You can register for the CMC, the live event, right at the Matt's site, the Mid-America Truck Show. That's truckingshow.com. If you have any questions, or you want somebody to help you with sign up, give our Tribe Care team a call. Why don't I know what that number is? I should. We'll find it. We'll get it out. I think those were my only announcements, and we need to hear from the team from Pittsburgh Power. So let's bring in Bruce. Is this Bruce? This should be Bruce. Bruce, good morning.
It's me. Good morning.
What's on your mind today?
Well, I want to mention we're running out of time. Coming up to our owner-operator snowmobile conference, which will be based out of Ogden, Utah. So it's right off of I-15, and I don't know the exit, but it's Route 21 or 21st Street. We'll be at the Comfort Inn. Plenty of truck parking, plenty of pickup truck parking. $99 a night plus tax for the rooms. So it's a good deal there. We're 35 minutes from the trailhead. Beautiful drive up the mountain. If you show up in a semi truck and need to run a sled, there are rentals at the trailhead, which is called Monte Cristo, where Mike Lane does most of his snowmobiling. I've rode there several times with him. Beautiful place, a lot of trails. You can even ride from there all the way to Bear Lake on trails. You might want to take some clothes with you because it's probably a day ride up and a day ride back. But anyway, we're going to do some country western dancing. We're going to watch Smokey and the Bandit. We've got a great restaurant right on the parking lot. Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday, we're going to go to Carl Malone's ADS Motorsports. It's a huge place. They have 80 employees. And I will warn you, when you walk in there, you will feel like you want to buy a snowmobile, a UTV, a Sea-Doo. I mean,
They have all the
it's
toys.
Just like, get out your credit card or get out your check, and they'll even take cash because it's quite the toy place. And so anyway, that's February. We meet on the 19th. Ride the 20, 21, 22, and depart on Sunday, the 23rd. And it's a good time, and you have never seen Smokey and the Bandit like you have when you watch it with 20 owner-operators. So
I'll bet.
Something else I wanted to say. I'm upset with what's going on in California. I have been a victim of my home in Colorado because of the Marshall Fire that they had 4 years ago that burned all those homes in Denver.
Right.
My insurance went up well over 100%.
Ooh.
And I said, why? They said, well, you're in a fire zone. I said, I am not in a fire zone. I said, I am 6 miles from the closest forest. I'm in a dried up riverbed. It's all rock.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of sagebrush. Nothing grows there. Nothing. And they had me take pictures from all 4 corners, standing with the back to 4 corners of the house. And I did, and I took pictures from the windows, and I showed them. Our landscape is dryscape. I mean, it's just rock. And they still say I'm in high fire zone. And in fact, some insurance companies wouldn't even rate me. So now with all this going on in California, the rest of us are going to pay for this. Seems like whatever California does, we have to pay. And fire hydrants not having water, a reservoir being empty, and all this other stuff that's going on. This is not right that the rest of the U.S. has to suffer for this. So,
well, since you brought it up,
they keep voting these same politicians in.
I think that may come to an end here soon. I think we may finally see the tide change there, even in California. Oregon, I don't think there's much hope, but maybe in California because of how bad this is. So a couple comments, and I want to talk about another topic that has me kind of furious over what California's doing. But I will concur. I've been to your place in Colorado. That is nowhere near a fire zone. There's nothing that could catch on fire except your house itself. Nothing around is going to catch on fire and then burn your house down. It's not even close.
That's right.
That's
exactly
insane
right.
That they consider that a fire zone. It should be considered an anti-fire zone. You couldn't start a fire out on the landscape out there if you tried.
That's right.
So here's something that makes me crazy, and I've told this story before. When you watch the news and they talk about these anti-gouging laws that they're going to enforce, and they make it sound so wonderful. We're protecting the people from those greedy capitalists that would take advantage of this. They're trying to double and triple the prices of things that you need to survive, water and food and emergency supplies. And they make it sound like they're doing such a wonderful thing. They're screwing everybody. The free market will fix this much better than their stupid anti-gouging laws. And here's one example. And when I went through this in Florida, I think it was 94, we got hit by 3 hurricanes in the same summer. And the first one was the worst. And I immediately realized I need a generator because this looks like it's going to get rough. You could not find a generator anywhere. I traveled like 2.5 hours down to South Florida and found one left. I had to pay for it so somebody else didn't get it. And then I had to fly down there to make sure they didn't sell it out from under me. And then all of my neighbors and friends, and I was coaching high school wrestling at the time, so I had a lot of acquaintances in the area. Everybody needed a generator. There were none to be had, and nobody was saying they were going to get any in. So I started thinking about it, and I had an extra truck that I kept at FedEx as a spare. I had an account to rent trailers from, and I had time. So I looked around the country and found the best deal I could on a whole bunch of generators, and I took orders for them ahead of time. And I worked out the math. Now I have to take my truck, my trailer that I have to rent, my time to drive out to Texas to get these generators, and I can't really buy them wholesale. I'm not a dealer. I just got the best deal I could on them. And I went around and I said, look, here's how much I can sell you a generator for. And everybody agreed. Then Florida started pushing this anti-gouging law, and they were cracking down on it. And the price I needed to charge would have landed me in jail or gotten me a whole bunch of fines. And I said, this is ridiculous. These people have the money, and they've already agreed to pay that price. They want a generator. They should be allowed to buy that generator at any price. There should be no limit on this price. But here's what it does. And then they'll say, well, that's not fair to the poor people who can't afford that. But here's what it does. First off, if I bring in 40 generators, that's 40 people who aren't out fighting to get a generator somewhere else. So if there are donations or the government brings stuff in, I took 40 people out of that mix that aren't fighting for that now. That leaves more for the people who couldn't afford it at this price. Plus, here's exactly what would have happened. Somebody else would have done exactly what I would have done. If there's a profit to be made, somebody will go do it. There was no profit at all. I would have lost money if I would have had to stay under that limit. So allow the profit taking. I don't care how much somebody wants to charge, because supplies will flood into that area if you allow a profit. That benefits everybody. So if the people who can afford it buy stuff at any crazy price, that frees up lots of supplies for the people who can't afford it. Why doesn't that make sense to people?
Because they're not entrepreneurs. We're going to talk about that. We're going to take a couple minutes and talk about entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And what makes an entrepreneur do what he does. Okay. That's another one of my subjects for today.
All right.
Because of the negative things that I'm seeing on social media from just a few people. And they're in the trucking industry. But something else I wanted to say. You know, I didn't really know what DEI was.
Oh.
So I looked it up.
I could educate
diversity,
you,
equity, and inclusion. No, wait a second. Think of our owner-operator world. Our mechanical world, our owner-operator world. Diversity. Is it diversified? Of course it is.
Well, Bruce, let's make a comparison.
Is there...
Let's talk about that for just a second. Let's go back to when you and I first got in this industry. It was not diversified at all. I've talked about this. Almost everybody I knew that owned a truck either grew up in a trucking, they were white males mostly. They grew up in a trucking or a farming family. That was the vast majority of the industry when we started. So if we use that as a baseline, Now the trucking industry is wildly diverse. And I would say too diverse. That's probably going to piss some people off because of the visa program that brings in people from just about anywhere, and makes them truck drivers because of the made up truck driver shortage story that they've been telling for decades. So diversity is fine, but they should be qualified. That's what the biggest problem with this whole thing is. It just throws out any kind of qualification other than the color of your skin, your gender, things that have nothing whatsoever to do with your job. People have to be qualified for the job.
Well, if you're qualified, it doesn't matter where you're from, what color you are, your education. You can go to any company and work if you're qualified. Now, if you're not qualified, you can't go and do it. I mean, I couldn't go become an electrical engineer. I'm not qualified for that. I sure could go work with mechanical engineers, though, even though I don't have the degree in that. So that's how that works. But equity, everyone's the same in our industry. You're an owner-operator. We have equity in our industry.
Well, let's stop.
And we have inclusion. Everybody's included.
Hold on. We got to go back to the word equity. This one just makes me crazy. And I'll tell you, when I first came in contact with this word, and I was so confused. Remember when before I got canceled from SiriusXM, they gave me a week off because I offended people of other races, the Asians, because of some comment I made about soy. They actually gave me a week off for that. And then they said, we can't force you to do anything because you're an independent contractor, but we'd really like you to sit through our live course on DEI. And I had never heard the phrase, didn't know what it was. And then I read it, and it was, like you said, diversity, equity, inclusion. So I was curious. I'm like, well, I'll sit through this. So we got to equity. I'm like, equity? What are they talking about? Equity is what I build up in my house when I make enough payments or put a big enough down payment on it that I've paid off more than the value. So I have some equity in my home, or I can have equity in my truck or my business. It's the only use I've ever seen of that word. I thought, what are they talking about? Bruce, here's what the word should be: equality. We're all equal as human beings, and we should have equal access to opportunities as long as we qualify for them. But what equity means, and they used a word that was so close it's confusing. What equity means is they are shooting for equal outcomes, not equal opportunities. Equal outcomes is never going to happen. You take 10 people, give them the same opportunity, you're going to get 10 different outcomes, and it's based on the effort you put into something. They want people to get the same outcome whether they put in any effort or not.
Well, yeah, that doesn't work.
No, so we should throw out that word. See, that's one of the ways they do they just change words, they change definitions. And that's the equity. That word should be thrown out. The word we should use is equality. We're all equal as human beings and American citizens. We all have access to the same opportunities. Bruce, you said you're not qualified to be an electrical engineer, but do you have the opportunity to go get qualified?
Sure do.
And everybody else has that same opportunity, right?
That's correct.
Right. So we have equality. We've had
Everyone
it forever.
has that.
Right. We've had equality for a very, very long time. We all have access to the same opportunities. We will never create the same outcomes, but that's what equity tries to do.
And then the last one, inclusion. In our owner-operator world, everyone's included.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody can
It doesn't matter if you're from Jamaica. It doesn't matter if you're from Romania. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where people are from. We don't care.
No.
You own a semi-truck. That's what we care about.
Bruce, I'll take it a step further. There was a time, not really that long ago, where if you really looked at the recent immigrants to our country, when there was some rules and some vetting of who got into the country, that you have to have that. If you don't have some rules and vetting, then you don't have a country. You just have a free-for-all. But there was a time where I would make the statement that I hated making this statement, but unfortunately, I find that those people appreciate the opportunities we have in this country, and they work harder to achieve them than many of our own natural born citizens here do. And that's sad to say, but that was my experience for a long time. And that's just not true anymore. Now we just let anybody in, and we can see what the result of that is.
Right. But so this DEI, we've lived the DEI world in this industry. And so I don't know why all of a sudden now they have to, well, I understand why. I shouldn't have said that, but okay. So then the other thing, there's people posting things saying you'd have to be an idiot to think that billionaires care about you, meaning Trump and Musk.
Oh, please.
Why do you think those guys, some people have posted, and I'm not going to mention their names, but Elon's only in it to get more billions.
Oh, please.
And that's not true. You're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. When you bring products in, or you come up with ways of helping owner-operators, or you bring products into your store, do you do it saying, man, I can make this much money if I sell this many of these? That's the last thing on your mind.
Right.
When we're developing something for a semi-truck, we don't even think about the end price. We don't think about how much we can make. It's all in how can we help our clients? How can we make the engine better? And how can we make it more efficient and live longer?
I'll add one thing.
That's the true entrepreneur.
Right. And that is why capitalism really works, because that is the majority of entrepreneurs. There are entrepreneurs who get totally focused on the money. Many of them will fail after a while. If your focus is the money, you've got a higher chance of failing. If your focus is, one, serving your customers better and helping people more, the money will follow. Usually takes longer, and that's okay, but the money will follow. But here's something else, Bruce, and I love this part of it too. And I'm sure you and I and many entrepreneurs are like this. Our first goal is to help people. The other part of it, though, is the challenge. The challenge of doing something somebody else hasn't been able to figure out. There's a lot of satisfaction in that. That motivates me a lot.
Tremendous.
Yeah. And I know that if I can solve this problem, this challenge that somebody else hasn't solved yet, or I can do it better than they did. I think most entrepreneurs are hyper competitive, and I am. If I can make something better than everybody else has made it, I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. And then I know I can help people in a way that nobody's helped them before. That's motivating for me.
What those of us that are born with that competitiveness, I think we're born with it. Why do we have that? Why do we strive to do the very best at everything we do?
I have a theory.
Why, just like when I'm with Mark Chappell, the Cummins engineer, and we're walking through different things and we're looking at things, we think the same thing.
Yep.
How can we improve this? And it's really neat to be with engineers that think that way, or everybody. How can we improve this? And I've been told many times in my life, why can't you leave well enough alone?
If somebody tells me that, they just increase my motivation to do it.
Yeah.
The more you tell me you shouldn't do it, you can't do it, you won't be able to do it, the more I sit back and think, oh, well, watch me. So I have a theory about why.
What I think. Go ahead. Let me hear your theory.
Okay. So I I've done a lot of thinking about this on the health side because I take everything back to when we were hunter-gatherers and when we lived in tribes. And I do it mostly for health, but I got thinking about the psychological aspect of all this. First off, would you agree with the statement? And a lot of people probably haven't thought about this. It is either impossible or nearly impossible for a human being to survive in the wild by themselves.
It would be pretty hard.
There's too much to do. Between, staying warm, killing things to eat them. I mean, you start to look at it and the odds are you're going to die by yourself. So we formed tribes for that reason. And the tribe became your life. And you worked to improve whatever skill you had, whether it was fishing or hunting or weaving baskets or building fires or whatever skill you were kind of responsible for. You worked hard to make sure you were good at it, or you might be banished from the tribe and you would die. That's how critical it was to be good at what you did. And the better you were, the bigger your rewards were, the more stable your place in the tribe was. So I think that at one time, this is innate in every human being. Like, why does every species of animal, why is it born knowing how to do something? Doesn't have to be taught. It innately knows how to do things that allow for its survival. We learn things as human beings, but I think that drive to learn things and be competitive is innate. I think it's our society that drives it out of people.
So what you're saying is Pittsburgh Power is its own tribe.
Yes, absolutely.
Because we try to do everything in-house.
Yeah.
And that's how you ended up calling all your people the tribe.
That's where that came from.
Ah, yeah, that's good. I like that. Now you're right.
And I think it's innate. I just think
So,
that the way you're brought up can just kill that competitive drive. And I think we do that a lot. And you and I and entrepreneurs are fortunate. However we were brought up, that was either fostered, and with my upbringing, it wasn't fostered, but it wasn't discouraged at all. It was just, I just didn't get a push in either direction. So I believe my innate drive was just there, and it didn't need to be fostered. It just didn't need to be discouraged, and it wasn't. So it was allowed to flourish.
Yeah, mine wasn't either. Sometimes Dad would get a little upset. A few minutes later, or at least the next day, he'd come home. So I've been thinking about this. He'd come home from work. This is how we're going to fix this. Already working on it, Dad.
That's right.
So Elon Musk and Donald Trump are not doing this to make money.
No.
That's the furthest thing from their mind.
Yep.
Elon never probably set out to make money. Elon's, none of us could figure out how his brain works. I mean, he's so beyond all of us. But it's not how to make money. It's how to do things.
If we want to take this to
Trump.
Oh, go ahead.
Trump doesn't even take a paycheck the last time he was president.
Exactly. I doubt that he will this time. There is a class of people in our country that I don't believe they do what they do for the right reasons. I believe they do it for the money alone. And the statistics on this are outrageous, and they have gotten really bad in just the last 20 years. How is it that all the members of Congress and the politicians in Washington manage to become multi-millionaires on $170,000 a year, or whatever they make? The math does not work. So, and what do they produce? They produce nothing. They improve nothing for the most part.
Nothing.
And I believe that they are so screwed up that their drive is simply the money. And our system is so corrupted, it works. They become multimillionaires producing nothing.
You're exactly correct. Paul Carmine just sent me. Not everyone will get a trophy, just winners.
That's the way it should
Paul
be.
Carmine haul cars?
Does
he haul cars because he has to, or does he want to? I mean, he owns his own truck. He can haul anything he wants.
That's right. That's right. He's in a
I just
niche,
helped the guy spec a new W9 this morning. He's on with Oakley and hauls a hopper. 64 years old, buying a brand new truck. 64-year-old person that worked for a company, they're long retired.
Usually.
Not our industry.
Yeah.
Because people love this industry. They love these trucks. They love driving these trucks. I was on with a gentleman that's 55 last night, loves the old mechanicals. Everything. He owns about 3 trucks right now. They're all mechanicals. He loves driving mechanical trucks.
Yeah.
And they're all performance. And our conversation was, we talked about a lot of things. And you and I talked about the 3 chemicals a good running truck releases in the brain. Do you remember what those were?
Dopamine, serotonin, and what would the third one be?
Dopamine.
Adrenaline. Yeah. Adrenaline's more of a stress chemical. Dopamine and serotonin are more mood chemicals. Adrenaline is kind of a stress. Adrenaline releases when the fight or flight response kicks in. So, going back to the tribe analogy, when the saber-toothed tiger was trying to eat us, adrenaline kicks in with the stress response. Another tribe members or another tribe's trying to kill us. I mean, that's a stress response that keeps us alive. The problem in our modern society is that the stress response should only kick in when we're in real danger. Again, like going back when there were lots of dangers in the real world, we could die or be severely injured. That stress response kept us alive. The problem in our modern world today is traffic kicks in our stress response. Too many emails kicks in our stress response. Somebody disagrees with us on social media kicks in our stress response. And we stay in the stress mode all day long, and it's not healthy. And none of those things are dangerous. We just perceive them as danger now. And it's really a big part of what keeps us unhealthy, that and our food supply.
Did we also talk about endomorphines one time?
Yeah. So now,
am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, morphine is in the word. What is morphine? It's a painkiller, right? And if you've ever taken a painkiller, an opioid-based painkiller, not only do they take the pain away, they make you feel really good. They release those chemicals, the serotonin and the dopamine, and you feel really good, but it's synthetic and it's too much, and that's why people get addicted and they overdose. But you're aware of the runner's high. That's what's happening. The pain of pushing through that long run releases those opioid-like chemicals into your brain, and we get a runner's high, and they're natural and they're more regulated. So you can kind of become addicted to it because it feels so good, but it's not dangerous. Another one that I love, what else will kick this in? Does it for me every time. All I have to do is eat something hotter than I can really kind of stand. Hot enough that it causes pain when you're eating. And in about 5 or 10 minutes, I feel the dopamine and the serotonin release, and I feel amazing. And you have to keep eating hotter and hotter stuff to make it happen. That's why people get to these where they're eating these crazy hot peppers, because they just keep pushing that limit to get that dopamine rush.
Wow. But a great running truck does that to a man.
That'll do it.
Taking a load up a hill. The pictures that I see, the morning sunrise, looking out over the hood of their trucks, say my office view, that's all part of that addiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are good addictions.
Yeah, but tell me why you think Elon wanted to get involved. He didn't need to get involved. Trump didn't need to get involved. I think Trump wanted to save the country and the world for his children and grandchildren. Is what my feeling was.
Let's tie it into.
He saw how many things were going wrong.
Let's tie it into what we were just talking about. Competitive entrepreneurs, like you said, get that rush from parts of our business, whether it's the truck that we've built to be, perform really well. And when we go up that hill, we get that rush. So in business, you can get it from your successes. You can get it from sports, from your successes. You get those feel good chemicals. But just like I have to keep eating hotter and hotter wings, in business, you have to keep solving bigger and bigger problems. And when you look at what Elon Musk has accomplished in business, what's left? The guy's planning on building a colony on Mars. I mean, that's how big he thinks. So what's left in business? He's kind of maxed out. So what better than to take on the biggest challenge he can think of, which is fixing this screwed up country? And I think Trump is the same way. He has beautiful properties all over the world. He can golf in any country he wants at his own golf course. He's accomplished so much business-wise. I think people like that look around and go, I need a new challenge. I need another dopamine hit. What can I do that would really challenge me? And we all know as entrepreneurs, the bigger, like I said earlier, the bigger problem we solve, the more people we help and the more we help them. I think that's their whole motivation here. They needed a bigger challenge. And what bigger than fixing the mess we've made of our country?
Exactly correct. So.
And we are all going to benefit from that if we would just get the hell out of their way and let them do it.
That's right. All these other people that want to stand in their way that haven't accomplished much, yet they think they know everything. Especially the people on CNN and MSNBC. They all have their opinions. And how about the girl or the girls on The View? Oh, they think they know everything, don't they? My God.
I can't even watch it. I can't even watch the little clips. If I see them somebody talking about The View or going to a clip from them, I have to look away and I can't listen. I don't even know how somebody could get to that point. I had another thought.
Whoopi Goldberg makes $8 million a year, and she sat on that show and said, I have to do this. I need the money. She makes $8 million a year.
See, Bruce, because and look, I'm a free market capitalist. I have no problem with the fact that she makes $8 million a year. Somebody thinks she's worth that. And that's how capitalism works. If somebody thinks you're worth a certain amount and they'll pay you, but you also see a lot of people like that do fail financially, and entrepreneurs fail financially at times too. But I think you see it a lot more with these celebrities because in reality, they're not worth that. They don't produce. They bring entertainment to some people, and there's a huge value in entertainment, and that is part of our problem. People would much, much rather spend a fortune to be entertained over and over and over. And entertainment's fine, but if it becomes the thing you're seeking all the time, you are not growing as a human. That's where I think we've gotten screwed up. Whereas, if you're growing because you're building something and providing real value to people and even challenging them, people don't want to pay for education, but they'll pay a fortune for entertainment. And I think that's just part of where our society's gone wrong. But I'm not against it. If you can figure out a way to get paid that much, that's what free market capitalism is. The people who need to hear that message, it's not Whoopi Goldberg. It's the people who make it possible that she gets paid that much. You should think about why you do that.
Okay. All right. We need to get to trucking.
That was philosophical.
Engines.
Yeah. Let's who do we have today? Who's with us?
Eric.
Eric Solo. Eric, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Good. Are you looking for a new sidekick?
Possibly.
Okay.
Did you want to apply?
I'm not qualified. Unless you guys have a DEI program that I can get in on, I'm not qualified.
Yeah, Kevin is not qualified to be an electrical engineer at Pittsburgh Power.
Nope, not even close. Not even close. But if you guys have a DEI program, I'd be willing to try out.
I'm sure we can make something up for you.
All right. And then I'll just make up all my answers.
There we go.
Because that's all I got.
Can make you head chef.
That'll work. I can come and make lunch for everybody.
That works for me.
All right. What's on your mind today?
All right, Eric.
So we have a bunch of stuff going on in our shop this week. It's already starting. I think the floodgates are opening up. We're about a week and a half out for any kind of service work. We have a really diversified group of trucks in our shop right now. I have a 16 International in here. I have an old split window Freightliner, which is really cool. I haven't seen one of them in a while. It's a 87 Freightliner with a big cam. Pretty sure it's got air in the fuel line somewhere. It's getting air into the fuel system, I should say, somewhere.
Okay.
We have a bunch of Peterbilts in here. We have a glider in here. We're actually putting in the new rebuild engine. It wasn't a Fitzgerald. It's a Pete. What's that new one? 567. Yeah, 567 front end with a Detroit Series 60 in it, and it was wore out. It was a glider that had like 700,000-800,000 miles on it.
Okay.
We just did a full in-frame rebuild, but out of the chassis. We're installing it today.
Nice.
Bunch of diagnostics in here. Looking at a lot of wiring jobs, low power, just all over the board with it. And the DPF cleanings have just been stacking up like crazy. I want to say there's probably about 14 or 15 invoices right now that we're currently working on. Many of you know, and some don't, we bought into the DPF alternative franchise. We have a full operating, functioning operation going across the street here. Steve, one of our guys here that does the OPSs, and he also cleans the filters and everything. He's keeping pretty busy over there. We have quite a bit of stuff going on. New, old, Cummins, Caterpillar. We got a couple Acerts in here right now. The new Cummins we have in here. We have Detroit's, the DD platforms, Series 60. Just a really nice group of got our jobs this week. It's all different makes, models, brands, size, shapes, everything. It's actually refreshing. I like this kind of stuff because it's not uniform. Like when I first got out of high school, I assembly job at a local manufacturing plant. You did the same thing day after day, and I learned real fast. This sucks. I can't do this. I mean, God bless the people that do, but it's not meant for me. So I learned real fast. I better find a different trade, and luckily it's paid off. So the other thing
that happened to me. That happened to me too, Eric. Between my junior senior year, I was at a assembly line, a table manufacturer, and it made me really buckle down my senior year because I knew I couldn't do that.
It was bad. It was a local tool and die company here, and the assembly room I was in had one window in it, and the window was, if I had to guess, about 9 feet off the ground.
Oof. So
you couldn't see like cars or even trees or anything. If you were lucky, you got to see a bird fly by. Like we got excited about a bird flying by, and then I thought, this is ridiculous. I can't spend the rest of my life like this.
I've heard prisoners say that too.
Yeah, that's exactly what it kind of felt like, and it was swing shift, and I I learned right away, like, yeah, this is not for me.
So when you just mentioned the list of different trucks we have in, that's diversity.
That's right.
That is.
That's right.
Yeah, part of the DEI. And everyone driving those different trucks.
And
it's all in the inclusion. We include them all.
And Bruce, I'll jump in here. If you follow my business advice, you'll have equity in that truck from day one.
Yeah,
that's true.
Mm-hmm.
See, we got this DEI thing figured out. We do it right.
Yeah.
And
you didn't know that, Eric, did you? You didn't know we're DEI compliant.
I'll have HR draw up the paperwork so we can amend our company rule book.
There you go.
I tell you, I just got so tired of hearing them and watching the news about California and this DEI. So I got to see what this is.
Oh,
and I looked at it, and the more I read it, I said, we're already there.
Bruce, you were better off not knowing what it was, really.
Yeah,
ignorance is bliss true. When it comes to about half of what our government's been doing lately, or more.
Yep.
But 6 days, things might change. Pretty sure they're going to.
They're changing already.
Yeah, I know. I know.
You've seen freight rates are gone up. Yeah, it's changing, and it's happening fast. And by the way, everybody's investments the month of November did well because they called it the Trump bump.
The Trump bump. I like that.
Did you? The Trump bump. Yeah. I had to call my broker. I said, what happened? He said, the Trump bump. I said, wow, that was nice.
Bruce, I know we got to get to some truck stuff. I will say right now, we only have one call. And Mike, we will get to you. I know you've been there since just about the open of the show. Calls, we are going to start getting to some calls, so phone lines are open. Before we do, and this is trucking related in a roundabout way, but I've been telling people about something that I just learned myself a little over a week ago. I think it's been 10 days now. And I'm going to make a prediction, and I don't make many predictions because I hate being wrong, but I've been through all the big technological changes in our life. I built my first PC, I think it was 1983. Built it out of parts from Radio Shack and then continued to build PCs. I was on social media in the late 80s, like 87. It wasn't much different than it is today. You could just communicate with people all over the world on a computer. We hadn't even heard the word internet yet. So I've been around for the Apple iPhone revolution. Now everybody has a supercomputer in their pocket. I was very involved in the social media revolution, which has been driving, our society for quite some time now, and I'm not wild about most of the results. I'm going to make a prediction that two technologies that we've heard of just recently started coming together, and I think it's going to be bigger than all of the ones prior. That's a pretty wild claim. Anybody curious as to what it is?
Is that the supercomputer down in Memphis?
Nope, not at all. Mm-mm. Two things we've heard of.
Say one of them.
One everybody was talking about back in 2018, and I was so confused about it. And I said, I don't want to know how the technology works. I want to know how it's going to make my life better, or how I'm going to use it. And nothing really ever came of it until just recently. And then the other one is more recent, and we've all been talking about it. I use it every day now. I'm using it more and more every day, and it's really making me better at what I do. But the two have come together, and nobody's talking about this, but it's happening in the real world. Somebody reached out to me 10 days ago, and we're signing documents on some new projects already. It's blockchain. Remember the whole blockchain thing? Yeah, AI. Absolutely, Eric.
Yep.
Remember blockchain?
Yep.
It was going to revolutionize everything. And I said, tell me how, because I don't get this. I don't see the real world application. And nobody could really explain it. The only thing I'm aware of that blockchain did drive was cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies run on blockchain, but they're about the only thing I'm aware of that really did. Well, the reason is because blockchains are really powerful now that I understand them, but they were too expensive and complicated to set up and make something practical. AI changed all of that. Now they're using AI to build blockchains quickly and cheaply, and it's going to change a lot of stuff. I've talked. I'm not going to go into all the things we're working on. I've talked about it a little bit, and once I start talking about it, I just keep going and going. Here's the best way I can describe blockchain now, in my simple way of understanding it. Every piece of data you can imagine, everything. And the reason I'm talking to you guys about this, I want you to think about data, maybe even in the truck, in the ECM. I'm not even sure yet. I'm trying to get my head around this, so I'm trying to make people aware of it so we can think about all the possibilities. This could revolutionize our company and everything we do. And that's why I think this could be so big. And I can visualize all of that because it's what I do every day. So we can easily now take any piece of data or a gazillion pieces of data, and blockchain turns it into a Lego block. And Bruce, if you have a Lego set and Eric has a Lego set and I have a Lego set, we could all get together in the same room. We could build all kinds of cool stuff really easy because every Lego block just attaches right to every other Lego block, right?
Correct.
That's what blockchain is. It's data made into Lego blocks. So we can take data from anywhere, giant companies, individuals, and blockchain and AI will turn that data into a Lego block. And now we can easily take these Lego blocks of information and build anything we want quickly and cheaply. And I can't even imagine how this is going to work in other industries. But it is going to, I believe, absolutely revolutionize things in our industry. And I can see how that's happening, and we're a part of it already. I am, here's where I am in this phase. This company reached out to me out of the blue. I had never heard of them. They reached out to me because their focus, they are the data company in this. They're the company that goes out and gets information from anywhere and builds it into a Lego block. And then they're going to make a whole bunch of Lego. They're going to give me the master logistic Lego set, and we can build anything we want with it. So I'll just leave it at that. We're building some really, really cool stuff. So this company, that's what they do. They reached out to me out of the blue and said, our information is going to be focused on trucking and logistics, and we think you can build really cool stuff for your tribe, small carriers, owner operators, and drivers. And once they convinced me and they showed me that this is up and running. I mean, I've got an app that isn't on the market, but it's done. And this app is incredible what it does. We're probably going to buy the app because they really don't want to market it. They built it to show the capabilities of what their system could do in the trucking world, all the way down to the driver level, even employee driver stuff we can build with this. So they have this app, and then when we got talking and they know this is our market, they said, would you be interested in just taking this app? We only built it so we could prove the concept. They did a hell of a job. It's beautiful. It's really functional. And they said, we can negotiate this and we'll hand you the app and it'll be yours. And that'll be your starting point on this. And then we have tons of data. We can think about what I can do with fuel mileage data. And it's going to be automatic. There are ways we can gather that data. The driver has to do nothing. They don't have to open up our app and enter their fuel purchase. We can get that data for them automatically. And think about the fun we could have if every truck that in our tribe and everybody we can reach is now tracking every single tank of fuel, and they don't have to do anything. And every entry is precise and perfect. That's a big problem in our fuel gauges data. It's ugly data. People make mistakes and then they don't correct it. And then we can't afford to go through there and try to fix everything. So we just know there's outliers in there. There's bad data. It's not as accurate as it could be. And we're not going to be using odometer because odometers aren't always accurate. They're almost never accurate. We're going to be using GPS data, which is far more accurate than the odometer and stays accurate. And there's another new technology. Have you ever heard of MGPS?
No.
It's magnetic GPS. So it will still use the satellites that we have now that are accurate down to yards. I don't know if we're down to feet yet. I think we're at yards. But it uses the magnetic field of the Earth to tweak the satellite data accurate down to inches now.
Wow.
So I think we could have the first thought I have on fuel gauges, our app, is not only can we get lots of trucks on it, so we get really, really accurate data about how each setup works, how all the conditions affect it, but we could also have fun with it and gamify it. Who gets the best fuel mileage in each segment? And now, before if we tried to do it, anybody could cheat. So it's just never going to work if people are doing their own. But if we control the data going into the program, we know it's absolutely accurate. It would be fun to gamify it. All right, calls are starting to come in, so we're going to get to them. That's a lot to think about today. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, Eric's going to talk about Cole Fairbrook. Have you seen his recent mileages out of the 2WS Cat in the Pete and the Kenworth with the PACCAR engine?
I have
64 mile an hour average.
We talked to him on Friday, and he sounded like he had some pretty exciting stuff going on. I just haven't seen the numbers yet. So, What do you got, Eric?
His 2013 Peterbilt 386 with a 2WS Cat. It is a 336 rear gear ratio with a 10-speed. Now his APU is broke, so he's waiting on parts. So that's affecting the fuel mileage right now. But also with the cold, bad weather and stuff. At 64 mile per hour, 1,330 RPM, pulling flatbed, and he's nationwide. Hitch was November through December, 9,547 miles at 7.29 mile per gallon.
Wow.
With a 16.93% deadhead.
But they're talking about something else.
Fuel cost.
Hey, Mike, I'm going to put you back on hold for a second. I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Eric.
And the 2020 Kenworth with a T680 has a PACCAR MX-13, 264 gears, 12-speed overdrive, 0.77 gear ratio in overdrive, with an APU, same tires as the glider, 64 mile per hour at 1,100 RPM, pulling flatbed. Hitch was December, 6,218 miles, averaging 9.63 mile per gallon, but only averaging 8.25% deadhead.
Wow.
Fuel cost per mile, 30 cents. Some of these miles were in California and slow, 55 mile per hour. And it says 9.6 is the high. The normal for flat with this truck is 8.4. So that is incredible fuel mileage. Now, the other one that really got me was the Kenworth is the same truck I was pulling van with for a test 2024, June 1st to August 31st, pulling van, 13,699 miles, gave me 10.28 mile per gallon at 55 mile per hour in 11th direct at about 1,240 RPM.
Which is
just phenomenal results from that guy.
Which is the biggest factor in there on that particular number is the 55 miles an hour. That's the biggest factor. I mean, we can spec the trucks right. We can get close. That speed is so critically important that that's where you get those kinds of numbers. Now the challenge is, how do we maintain maximum efficiency as we move up in those speeds? Because there are times when freight rates are paying good and fuel prices aren't bad, and we want to run harder, but we don't want to lose that efficiency. And that truck isn't going to do it. I mean, there are some trucks that they're spec'd in a way that 55 to 60, you're going to get incredible fuel economy. So, and that was what worked for me, because I did the same thing every day with my trucks, and I could set that kind of speed. We knew we could meet our schedule at 57, and I did it. I did it for years, and I got way better than everybody else in fuel mileage, even before I learned all the things about speccing. It was just speed in the beginning. Everything else being equal, speed is by far the biggest factor. Here's why. One of the things I like to help people understand about fuel mileage: everything we do in fuel mileage, everything that makes it better or worse, all comes down to physics. And when you look at the physics of it, when you increase speed, you increase all those forces that hurt fuel economy. Wind resistance, mechanical drag, all of it. It all goes up exponentially with speed. And once you understand that, know that everything here can be explained by physics, and you understand the physics of it, which is, I'm getting ready to teach this part of the CMC. I'm going to be doing a deep dive into fuel mileage over the next probably couple of weeks to a month of the CMC. And I've only got a little over 2 months left on this year's program. The other part, and I might lean on you guys a little bit and see if I can get you to come on a session of the CMC and help me. I'm going to do a pretty deep dive into a really good preventative maintenance program too.
Yeah.
So it'd be a webinar, a Zoom. So we can, if you guys can find some time. Unfortunately, it's in kind of the middle of the workday. It's noon on Tuesdays, every other Tuesday. Noon my time. That makes it 3 o'clock in the afternoon your time. But if we could work that out, I'd appreciate it. If not, maybe I could just spend an hour with you anytime somebody has some time and just kind of tweak the program I already have. All right, let's get to the call. I brought Mike in and then put him back on hold. Mike, welcome.
Hey, Kevin, Bruce, and Eric, how are you doing today?
Good. What can we help you with?
Good.
My question is, and I want to make it crystal clear that it does not pertain to me and my truck, but it's for a friend.
Yeah, I've heard this one before.
No, it isn't me. It isn't me doing it.
Okay.
I got 2012 450 Cummins. I've had that truck for 11 years, and it's been full emissions. So what I want to know is basically, I'm pretty sure there's no pros, but the cons of doing a delete, going into the ECM, and just a program into the ECM, not doing anything with the EGR, blocking it off or any of that, just a program. What could you look forward to as far as the damages and the dangers? And no, I have a very good relationship with my shop, JX shop up in Grand Rapids, and tried out some shade tree guys and can't get, no good. So that's kind of what I want to know.
I'll let you answer that one, Eric.
What engine is it?
It's a 600 horse Cummins, and it's a 2015 600 horse Cummins.
Okay. So your question is, what would the benefits be from deleting the emissions through the ECM only? Is that correct?
Well, yeah, just through the benefits. Personally, myself, I see no benefits. I just see it's just loaded with cons, but I just basically want it straight from the horse's mouth and get them to listen to the show and hear it. what the cons are.
I
First of all,
and I also, at some point in time, we're over here in Michigan, and I do not get over that way, but we've been over to you guys. Any day that I do want to go over to you, I want to be able to go over to you. If I have a deleted truck, I certainly can't do that.
Exactly. There is zero benefits to deleting a truck now. With modern technology is catching up, our max mileage fuel catalyst, preventive maintenance, there is zero reason, because the only list you're going to get from that is negative. Number one, it's a felony. You can't go to any. Number two, you can't go to any shops you want to. You're going to be very limited, and more than likely, it's going to be the shade tree type guy that did the delete. And we see so many of these botched up tunes that cause catastrophic failure, blown engines, downtime, probably some bankruptcies out there that you're not even hearing about because those people were just, they're fading off into the sunset. There's zero positive results from something like that. The emission systems do work if they're maintained properly. You stay up on your maintenance with them, and you run good stuff. If you do your maintenance and you run the max mileage, you shouldn't have any problems. Parts will break, don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying we make a foolproof design with the Cummins platform or the CAT, but any platform you want to take it. There's none out there that's 100% bulletproof. And like I said, parts do break, but with the proper maintenance and the proper treatments, you should have a well-running truck for over 1 million miles. We went into the DPF cleanings earlier in the show with the DPF alternatives. That national franchise offers a lifetime guarantee on the cleaning of your filter. If you get a filter cleaned by them, or you replace your filter with an OEM one and you run the max mileage, that's how confident they are in the product. So there's zero reason to do a delete anymore.
Right. We've been running the catalyst since 2018. We do oil analysis every oil change. We go we do 20,000 miles. We do our oil change. Oil analysis every time. We watched the catalyst take the soot level. We watched it bring it down. We started using it over a course of time. It does work. It does work. And then we just started using the Flashpoint probably a couple of weeks ago, I think. So we're doing that, and we do think it runs even smoother. But the original engine, we first bought the truck. Cummins back then had a campaign out for oil consumption. Had to go in, did the pistons and the sleeves through Cummins up in Grand Rapids. We run that truck full emissions, 1.2 million miles. Now, Kevin, he came on the radio. It had to have been a couple of weeks after it happened. And he said, "Yeah, 1.2 million miles. About what you're gonna get out of it." That's probably right to the number. Roughly what it did do. Don't know what it did, but got it back home. Had the engine pulled, and then had a brand new recon put in. So that's where we are with that. And no, I won't be pulling anything off or deleting anything in my truck.
So if you would shut it all off in the ECM, so it's never going to do the regen, the passive regen, it's not going to run very long.
Well, now there's a major fleet. I happen to be kind of friends with the owners, and I was told they quit doing that because it grenades the engines. But I don't know absolutely how they were deleting them.
Well,
so that was good enough for me, and that really took that out of my thought process. Yeah, it's not worth that, because I'm not just going up, go buy just another truck. That's basically what I know. What damages you are going to cause. So.
Yeah. Well, we still have regens with the catalyst, but they're 2 and 3 minutes as you're going down the highway. But you still have to have them.
Yeah, the system
You still
was
have to
designed
burn it
have
off.
Right, right. That's a normal part of how the system works. It's just it wasn't working without the catalyst in a lot of these trucks because it was just so much soot that the system couldn't overcome it. And now the system with the catalyst operates the way it was designed, and it is designed to do regens.
Now, do you think with the winter blend fuels, because I noticed this, that my truck would want to do, even running the catalyst, we strictly run every time we fuel up, we put the prescribed amount in, every time the right amount per the gallons. Do you think that your regens are going to be a bit more with the winterized fuel versus summer blend?
No, because you have to put more of the catalyst in because half of it's the winter blend.
Okay, I do have winter blend, but I have not put any winter blend in it. It's just been kept the summer blend in it.
And it's not so
now
much.
You won't regen. Well, okay, go ahead, Eric.
It's not so much the fuel you're using; it's the temperature. So it's what's going to get you.
Okay.
And I've had people ask me before, well, I'm running winter blended fuel. My truck's regenerating a lot more. Well, it's because it's colder outside air temps too. When the after treatment system cools down, it gets clogged up with carbon and soot, and that's part of the reason why we had so many issues with this. And that's why the catalyst works so well, because it lowers the flash point of the carbon and soot to get burned off inside a combustion chamber. So a lot of new truck manufacturers are doing a couple ways to go after this. Cummins will do a ramp up in RPM. Sometimes it'll jump up from like 650 up to like 700, 8, 9, somewhere in that range, just to keep the more temperatures flowing through the after treatment system. In the new technology coming out, Cummins in 2027 is going to have an electric heater on the after treatment system to go after this in a different way. They're going to run a larger alternator, 48-volt system, and they're going to have external blankets, basically, or heating elements in the after treatment contraption or configuration, I guess I should say, that's going to go after this in a different manner. They know that it needs heat to get rid of all the carbon and soot in the engine and in the after treatment system. And you can do it a couple ways. You can do it chemically, which is what we come out with, or now they're going to come out with electric versions, which are going to be okay-ish. But if we can eliminate the problem at the root of its cause, the combustion chamber, I feel it's going to be a much better design for the engine as well as the after treatment system. Because if the engine is still producing all that carbon and soot, it's still getting introduced into your oil, your piston rings, the VG vanes of the turbo, everything that's moving up in the engine, where the after treatment system is just a bunch of inline filters and a urea doser that it's going to get plugged up with carbon and soot also. But like I said, if we can go back to where it's starting from and originating, then that's going to be the best plan of attack. And that's why I'm still a firm believer in the chemical way.
Okay, so the very last question, during idling, then you recommend, because I think it might have been a couple of weeks ago or so, you guys were talking about this, but idling up the truck if you're going to go ahead and sit there and idle. But
yes,
is that gonna? I mean, obviously, it's going to help a little, but you're not producing nearly as much heat if you were working the truck.
No. Correct. Yeah. Now, what we recommend for the idling is if you don't have an APU and you have to idle,
right,
we want the fluids to be moving in the engine. We want the oil pump, the water pump. We want all those fluids flowing a little bit faster because it is going to create a little bit more heat, and that heat helps create less of an atmosphere for the carbon and soot to conglomerate and actually merge inside there. But even idling with the max mileage, you're still going to reduce your emissions by up to 60%. So there's still a big benefit, even if you do have to idle.
Yeah, we by no means are thinking about stopping using the catalyst. So, yeah, well, that pretty much. I mean, I probably have 1,000,001 other questions, but that'll do it for today. And I really appreciate you guys very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Let's calls are starting to pile up on us. Let's get to Arkansas. Nathan, welcome.
Yeah, I got a 3406 C cat, and when I idle for a while, it starts smoking a lot, and it smells like diesel. It's not burning all the diesel off. So I'm not sure if that's the nozzles or what it is.
Could be your timing. 3406C has a mechanical timing advance on it. Has that been
fully mechanical
within the last? It's what?
Yeah, it's a C model, and it's been rebuilt in 2017.
Did they put new flyweights and springs in the timing advance unit?
I'm not sure. I'm thinking they rebuilt the pump and all that, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, that's what you want to check, because those weights need to be changed every 500,000 miles in the governor on the fuel pump and in the timing advance. And a 3406C was not designed for ultra low sulfur fuel, so you want to put the max mileage catalyst and the flash point in there, and you may see that problem go away. So long as the mechanical parts are good, you should see the problem go away, because it could be the fuel.
Okay, I have been running the catalyst for about 2 weeks now. I started running it in the flash point, and it seemed to help some, but I can't really tell.
Sure. Well, of course, you got to clean everything out. So you should see it'll have the engine really clean in 90 days. So,
okay.
All right. Engine should be smoother and quieter and more responsive.
It already idles smoother in just the first day.
There you go. Okay.
All right. Good. Hey, Bruce, when we're talking about mechanical engines and timing with all this woke stuff, are we still allowed to say we have to retard the timing?
Retarding is good.
I know. And once in a while, I do call people retards, but I guess we're not allowed to do that anymore.
Should we call it Biden?
Biden the timing. I like that.
Boy couldn't stay awake for Jimmy Carter's funeral. Did you see that?
Cow.
Holy cow!
Well,
he does. We need to find out what he does for sleep, because that boy could sleep anywhere.
Boy, you ain't kidding. Yeah, one other thing, I made this note and I forgot all about it. Earlier we were talking about, and you guys do this all the time. I had a hand in this. We're always looking for better ways of doing things, and we came up with the idea of smoke testing the intake system, because it works. Mm-hmm. And last night I was talking to Aaron, and he had a problem on his sled, and he replaced a bunch of sensors, and nothing was working. And I think he got a hold of somebody in tech support, and they said, if none of that worked, you must have a leak in the intake system. And he used the smoke machine and found it right away.
There you go.
Yeah. Yep. Let's go to Indiana. Ray, welcome.
Hello?
Yep. You're up. What's on your mind today?
Hey, I had a customer call in with a truck. He's got a 21 pack R, and he's got the yellow sludge on the cap and his oil-filled tube, like an emulsification. Don't they have like a CV or a CCV valve somewhere, a crankcase valve?
He's got that sludge. It usually means there's water in the oil. Is this Ray Mast?
Yes, it is.
Okay, Ray. Hey, my patches, for the people that don't know, I'm in under Ray on these patches, and it's my knee. I had it x-rayed, and they said it's filled with arthritis. But boy, I'll tell you that those patches are taking the pain away and allowing me to walk.
Oh, very good.
They are working for me. And they're working for you too, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, they are. They definitely are. So.
And what were you trying? What were your ailments that you're using the patches for?
Mine was sciatic nerve pain, lower back pain, sciatic nerve pain down my left leg and my knee, and they were getting ready. We were getting ready to do the stem cell where they spin the blood and then inject the stem cells back into my knee to try so I could walk. And all I did was just use the patches, and it relieved the lower back pain, and then the sciatic nerve pain went away, and I'm up and walking again.
And working on trucks.
And working on trucks. And today I got a Fontaine trailer in here that is an extendable. Yeah, shop's full today. Yesterday it was cold enough.
Right.
I was out on the road most of the day getting trucks started.
Yeah. So this cat you have in there right now, you have what looks like the mucus, not the oil.
It's
cocoa
on a
and
pack
color
car.
and stuff.
Yeah,
it's on a pack car.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he said he bought the truck new, and it's done it ever since he's had it, and he's always taken it to Peterbilt for the warranty work on it, but they didn't seem to be concerned about it.
The oil filler cap, if you take it off, it has the snot underneath it.
Yeah, yeah.
And does he use any coolant at all?
No, he said he uses no coolant on it.
Wow.
So I didn't know if, the crankcase filter on it is plugged to where it can't get rid of the moisture that's created inside the engine, or...
Is there a filter on the breather?
I don't know. I haven't seen the truck yet. It's my nephew's truck. He was just calling me trying to get answers for it.
Eric, do you know if there is, like on some of the older ISXs, is there a filter on the breather?
There is. It's an aluminum housing that bolts to the driver's side of the engine, if I'm not mistaken, and there is a serviceable filter inside there.
Yeah. The Cummins have them on it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the newer ones are like non-serviceable. They just have like a mesh in them. This one, I believe, is actual filter element, if I'm not mistaken. But I am going to strongly recommend an OPS in this situation, because that's exactly what the heating element combats against, is that condensation in there. When you start and stop a truck, you're getting a little bit of condensation when it heats up and cools off. And that's exactly what the OPS does with the heating element. Once that oil goes across the heating grid plate, flash burn off any liquid condensation, and then that steam just gets evaporated out into an exhaust tube out of the top of the unit. So this would be a perfect example. The OPS would benefit you is this exact truck.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely talk to him about it and see if we can't get something going on that. But
get back to us, Ray, and let us know. Change the filter and put the OPS on, and check it in a month and get back and let us know.
All righty. I will do that.
All right.
That's all I had for today. So
sounds good. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Alberta. Tyus, welcome to the program.
Hello, is that me?
It is. What's on your mind today?
Okay. I wanted to follow up, created a little stir here back in December with a gear ratio change.
Okay.
Just got the work done. Went from a 308 to 390s, and the truck's a lot more drivable in the mountains. So I did what I wanted, and all the talk that was with the older engines, the C12 here in my truck, we've got a pretty narrow band to be in to get good pulling power in the mountains.
And it's higher up in
that's
the RPM
a lot easier
range.
Yeah.
It's much higher up in the RPM range. So that actually makes sense for what you were trying to accomplish in the truck you were doing it on.
Yeah, no, so it's certainly good. And I pulled my front diff out, and there was a ton of shrapnel stuck on the magnets. So that one was on borrow time anyway. So it was good that I changed them.
Oh, good.
And so Yeah, it was quite interesting.
So what are
all the discussions about it? So.
Well,
How many RPM? You went from 308 to 390. How many RPM did you gain at the same speed?
Well, at top speed, well, pretty much 2 full gears. I was running at 16th before. Now I'm in 18s on the level. In the mountains, I've only done 1 trip over the Rockies back and forth so far. I haven't really paid attention as to what RPM I gained at what speed, but what is just happening, the jumps between the gears are smaller, so it's a lot easier to keep the truck in the proper RPM. Because before, the stretch was so high, if you're taking 2-3 seconds for a shift, you're losing so much momentum on the hills that it's almost not worth doing it. So it's a lot easier to just walk up the hills now.
We're back into this conversation again, and mathematically, this just does not make sense to me. I'm trying to get my head around this, and every chart that I look at, when I talk to the engineers, I went and talked to them about this. They showed me their calculations on this, and mathematically, I don't know how this occurred. I get why it performs better. You're up higher in the RPM range. I get all of that. I don't have any problem with any of that. The idea that you went to a lower gear ratio, significantly lower, and have a smaller drop in RPM does not make mathematic sense to me after I've seen the charts and the calculators. I wish we could document that. I mean, I wish I could see it happening in your truck. It's not that I'm doubting you. And I don't know what other variables. I tried to go through every variable possible when the engineer was explaining this to me. And it seems to me like this either didn't occur, and it's something about the way you're, I don't know, measuring it when you shift or something. Maybe it feels like it's a smaller drop because we're higher up in the RPM range when we start. I don't know. But I have not been able to figure this out. And I don't want to be argumentative about it. I want to learn something here and why I can't get my head around this.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, let me say this. Years ago when we had 411 gears, big cam Cummins, guy would pull out of the shop and it would just shift. He kept shifting and shifting. And now, take that same truck, put 264 gears in, he does less shifting because he's in the gear longer.
Well, wait a minute. There's 2 different issues here, and we're almost saying the opposite. There's one issue of how long can we stay in a gear. That's one issue. The issue he's talking about, though, is a different issue. What is the numeric? Because I don't want to talk about feeling or any of that, because that's all subjective. But to me, math is math, and this is a mathematical calculation. What is the RPM drop when he had 308s and he went from 18th to 17th? What is the RPM gain? And or the other way, when we upshift or downshift, what is that difference in the RPM between those gears? And mathematically, and math is math. This is the opposite of what I see happen in the charts. That difference in RPM from one gear to the next gets smaller as the ratio gets higher. He's explaining the opposite. And that's just math. And that's why I need to understand where I'm wrong on this.
So well, I can tell you back in the days of racing, if you had a 336 or a 370 and you put in 456, you shifted a whole lot faster and your gap was closer.
That's again, I need to see that mathematically to understand why I still am not getting this.
Okay.
If we have all these examples in the real world, then I'm wondering why I'm not understanding this, and maybe I still don't get the math. I don't know. When you look at the charts, it gets complicated, but I watched over and over and over. Every example did the opposite.
Well, a lot of guys will also say a low gear, but it's actually higher numerically.
Right.
So maybe that's where the confusion.
Well, here he just gave us a real world example. He didn't use low or high. He gave us the numbers. He went from a 308, a high gear, to a 390, a lower gear. And mathematically, again, the way I'm understanding it in my head, that should have made the RPM difference bigger between each shift, not smaller.
Every car I've ever had has been the opposite of that.
That's why I'm wondering what I'm getting wrong here. It's not that I don't believe you guys. I absolutely do. That's what's confusing me.
Is it the torque multiplier in the transmission? Like a transmission is a torque multiplier. So would the gear ratio affect whenever you let the clutch back out in the next gear because of the torque multiplying factor? Is that maybe where?
Well, I got to stop and think about each way we look at this, but we have the same transmission. The mechanical step between those gears has not changed. So the only way the RPM changes is because we changed the differential gear. We're disagreeing on which way that difference should have moved. And I'm seeing it unless I just totally misunderstood the math, but I don't think I did. The math isn't making sense with all the examples we're getting.
So Kevin, let's say this. Let's say you have 10 speeds or 13 speeds. You're going to go and you're geared low, so you can go from 0 to 70. At 70, you're on the governor. You change the gears, and now you can go from 0 to 100. Same amount of gears in that transmission. When you go to that higher rear, you're in that gear longer, and the space has to be more because you're adding that 30 mile per hour, and you have to divide that by the amount of gears that you have.
That one isn't helping me. I can't picture that. That's part of my problem here. I guess I don't know. My head. I guess I don't know why I'm not getting this one.
Because I'll tell you what, if you just stand by the highway and have two different trucks start out, one that's geared high and one that's geared low, the guy that's geared low just keeps shifting and shifting. The guy that's geared high, he's in his gear longer and he shifts less.
The being in the gear longer, that starts to make sense to me, but again, that's a different issue than the split between. This is where I'm stuck, is on the step between gears. When you change the differential, my understanding is that the higher we go on the ratio, the smaller that step's going to get. But all these examples are saying the opposite.
Well,
I
the
can't.
real world's working.
What's that?
I say in the real world, it's working for me. So just as far as changing in the RPM, it's probably about a 20% change in RPM. If you do it mathematically, 308 divided by 390 puts you at like 0.79%. So basically, so what's happening on a big hill now? I can drop 2 full gears. I pull the truck right down to 1300.
See, here's
and I
where
drop 2 gears.
I
end up at 1750, 18, and keep going. So.
If we only go by now, if you are out there and you are getting an accurate measurement of where the RPM was when you started the shift is made in the same amount of time, and we're kind of forced to make it in the same amount of time, or otherwise you're going to be grinding it, getting back into gear, and we're actually measuring the true RPM of the engine. But that I don't think that's what you're doing. If you are, then this is going to confuse me even more. But if we're talking about how fast it feels like we're shifting or how quick we picked the power back up, that is really subjective. And I could see how shifting at a higher RPM to begin with would make it feel that way. But if we do every shift starting at the same speed, same RPM, and we measure it mathematically, I think the math is telling us it's the opposite.
Okay, maybe I'm confusing. a question now too. So when I was saying the shifts take longer, what happened before with this 308? Once I was to the point where I had to shift, if I dropped one gear, I didn't get enough of a raise in the RPM. I was right back to the point where I had to shift. So I had to drop 2 full gears. Doing that, I went from 1300 to like 2000 RPM, where the truck was up against the limiter and wouldn't take throttle until I let the truck roll on its own a little bit, and I was down to 1900 RPM where it does take throttle. So that's where the delay came in for me. It was just I gained so much RPM that the truck wouldn't accept throttle because the RPM was too high.
Okay. Let me ask you this: are you on extreme mountains? What's the grade? What are you climbing? Like 10, 12%?
8-9% on the Coca-Cola Highway, 100,000 pound gross.
Oh, okay. So you're a different situation than the average person that's crisscrossing the U.S., right? So that's why you needed the lower gears. When a person calls me and they want to talk about gears, and we talk about 264s, a lot 279s, 247s. If they're doing heavy haul and they're in the mountains, we don't do that then. We stay with the lower gears like what you just did.
So, and again, I'll go back to this subjective feel and the fact that we could very well be comparing starting the shift at different RPMs, which is going to change this. Then I get the feel. I get why this pulls better. I get why we're staying in the power band more. I get all those things. And if that may be the same example from your race car days, I'm not sure, but all the mechanicals are the same that we're talking about. But if we're doing it mathematically and we're claiming that the step between the gears got smaller, it's wrong mathematically. And Bruce, I just sent you a chart and I looked at it to verify my math.
I'll digest this and we'll talk about it next week because I'm going to run out of time today. But
it's not
I'll
easy
look at this
to do that.
But
hey, Eric,
let's keep it simple. Let's say we got 10 gears. Let's say we got 10 gears. We're going from 0 to 70 versus 0 to 100. So that's 7. Let's say it's 7 mile per hour.
Bruce, here's
for
what
every
you're going
gear
to,
versus 10 mile per hour for every gear.
Here's what you're going to explain, and you are correct. What we've done is we've changed the overall ratio. Of course, we're going to have a different outcome on the road. We've changed the overall ratio. So I've agreed with that part of this. We now have a whole different set of situations because we could change the tire size and do that too. Wouldn't be as much of a change, but any change in the transmission gear, the differential gear, or the tire size, and now we have a new calculation on our overall ratio. So of course the performance is going to change, but what we're talking about specifically is the only thing I'm disputing is that step between the gears, because that's how he said it. His statement was, my step is smaller, and it's not. It's bigger because he went down in ratio. Now, if he would have gone up in ratio, a higher ratio, his step would have gotten smaller. And that the math is in that chart. Eric, do you have do I have your text anywhere? Are you in the show chat?
Yeah.
I'm going to send that same chart. And I don't think you're going to be able to look at this chart.
I just sent it. I just sent it to Eric.
Okay. It'll take
Eric
some time.
and I'll digest this, and we'll talk to you next week about this.
Good. Okay. Now we can talk about all the real world performance we want, because I get that. I just want to stay correct on when we put out a fact on the show. I want to make sure it's right.
Of course.
So see, Matthias, you just keep stirring up the hornet's nest over here.
I didn't want to. That was not my intention.
No, I'm glad you did. Yeah, that's not a complaint. This is how we get to the right stuff. Right.
He and I had a conversation after the show the last time we went through this, and we agreed for what he was going to do, that what he needed to do was go to those 390s. So it worked for him.
It makes sense. And all of it makes sense except that one statement. And I just want to be accurate on that statement. That's all. The rest of the stuff, I get it. I get it completely. And it all makes sense. And
Hey, Kevin, several years ago, I had a guy that had an E-model cat with 390 gears. I forget the tire size. And I'm assuming it was a 13-speed. And he ran to the Northwest. But he was getting great fuel mileage, but he drove slow.
Yeah.
And the fact that he drove slow with those lower gears and kept the turbo boost way down is why he got the fuel mileage.
So we have the same example in what somebody would consider a high gear ratio. We talked about these trucks for a while because Walmart spec'd these, and then they ended up on the used market, and everybody hated them because they were hard to drive, they were slow, the fuel mileage was awful when they would turn them up and try running them faster. And the difference was they put 290s. 290s, we would have 290, I think it was 290 or 293, one of the two. We would consider that a higher ratio than what we used to talk about, 390s, 370s, that kind of thing. But those 290s were matched to a direct drive transmission. So now that changed the overall ratio. Had we had an overdrive, this would have been a totally different thing. But because it was on a direct drive and small tires and 290s, this was an overall low ratio. And if you drove the truck at 55, you got incredible fuel mileage. If you drove it at 65, it was awful.
Sure.
All right.
So that's why we like in some of the trucks 264s with the 13 or the 18 speed, and program the ECM and give it a lot of power and give it a lot of gears, and we call it the unlimited truck. Yeah, unlimited speed, unlimited power, properly driven equates to great fuel mileage and longevity.
I call it that final overdrive gear. I say that's the gear you use when the cops are chasing you and you don't want to stop.
Okay.
Hey, now we got to get some calls. Bruce, before you go today, if we have time, I want to run one other thing by you. Let's go to Ohio.
Okay.
Herschel, what's on your mind?
Hey, Kevin.
What can we do for you today?
Swift, and they were that was Swift, and they were 293s, and then you could convert it and make it a 13. It was a 9-speed direct.
Some were
That's
actually.
what that was.
Yes.
Yeah. Not all of them were. Yes.
Yeah, the convertible made it much more drivable for people, but then they didn't know how to. They just wanted to go as fast as they could, and they didn't get really good fuel mileage out of them then. But whether you converted it or not, because you could still run in that direct gear at 55 and get really good fuel economy, but they would convert it to a 13 and then just run faster, and they didn't do very good at all.
I don't know if I can help you, but I'm going to try with this whole gear thing.
Okay.
Danny DeVito and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They're standing in the end zone on a football field, and they have to go to the other end, 100 yards. Danny DeVito's going to take 5,000 steps, and Kareem's going to take 1,000 steps.
Herschel, you're not helping.
Because of their stride.
You're not helping.
It makes sense to me.
No, you're back.
Hey, no, wait a second. Let's take. You got it, Herschel. I like that.
No.
What's the dog that has the real short legs? What's they called?
Wiener dog or dash hound?
No, not the wiener.
No.
Not the other one. The other one.
Boy, I love these dogs too, Bruce. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So you take that, or you take a German Shepherd.
Why not
whenever
a greyhound?
A person's just walking, that little dog, his legs are going so fast.
Here's why I want you guys.
The big dog, he's just strutting along.
Here's why I want you guys to stop.
Yeah.
You're explaining. We're back to the length of time in a gear. We even use the term that truck's got long legs, right? We used to use that term. I haven't heard it in a while. But when we had a high gear ratio, we'd say it have long legs. That's not explaining the step between the gears, which is the only thing I'm trying to explain here. And Herschel, here's what you just did to me. I'm going to have to turn off the phones and not take any calls till everybody forgets about this. This is like the day where I said, I don't understand all of these goofy analogies between horsepower and torque. And everybody's like, horsepower is what gets you to the wall and torque is what takes the wall down the road. And this, and I'm like, guys, this is not helping. I need a logical, mechanical explanation of the difference between horsepower and torque. And once I got it from an engineer, then it all made sense. None of these analogies work for me.
Kevin, Danny's going to have to take a break if they're trying to race because he's out of air. His lungs can't do it, and Kareem's just going to go because he's
your analogies are
such long strides.
Your analogies are getting worse because I could change yours and say Danny DeVito has a Fleet air filter and the other guy's got a standard paper filter and he's not getting enough air.
No, that has nothing to do.
He's got one out of a Vortex filter. That's why. See, Danny's got that.
He's
little
got the dual air filters.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got the dual air filters.
These are not helping.
Hey, Bruce.
Okay. Herschel, that was good. I like that.
Between you and Eric, maybe one of you would have an opinion, maybe both. That oil stabilizer, and Kevin, I already know your opinion on that. If there's a problem, use it. But question is on that oil stabilizer from Lucas Oil, they say right on the bottle, eliminates dry start, which I wonder how, because it's so thick. How would the oil be in the top better if it was thicker? Because I got to believe it changes viscosity. But the other part, it says right on the jug that it will help to stop oil leak that is going to the outside of the engine. Is there any way in Hades that that's even possible?
Well,
I don't think so.
Well, you know, Lucas has a power steering stop leak that really does work. And the main product,
the main oil stuff.
So
the main, there might be some of that in there, but he has this polymer that nobody else has, and that's the base to a lot of his oils, and that's why they work.
So I'm not
from the cardboard box.
I'm not going to address the leak other than just physics. A thicker fluid will leak less. And if it's a small enough leak, maybe a thicker fluid would be enough to stop it. Or maybe there is some polymer in there and I don't know, so I don't want to address that. Everything else about that additive is the opposite of what we want to do for fuel economy for sure. And I don't understand their claim on cold starting either. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I could. A thicker oil might cling to the parts longer. So it's not all coming back down out of the top of the engine. It's clinging to those parts, but we don't, well-built engine, tuned right, operating properly, doesn't have excessive wear. That's the last thing we want to do is thicken the oil.
Okay. All right. Let's go back a few years. Let's go back a few years. Back in my race car days, that's 50 years. We used 20W50 Kendall GT1 racing oil.
I remember it.
The car would sit all winter. You remember that oil?
Yep, I do.
Great oil.
Oh, I love
it. The car would sit.
Oil was the best.
Yeah, I loved it. Plus, they did free oil analysis. If you used their oil, it was free to have your oil analyzed. That was really great. We analyzed everything back then. So I pulled the oil pan down once in the spring, and I forget why I took the oil pan down, but keep in mind, the car is sitting 6 or 7 months. I looked up, and that 20W50 oil was still on that camshaft.
That makes
sense. There were drops of it on the bottom side of that camshaft.
That's what that thought came to me while I was explaining that I didn't understand why it would work, but I do. I get the claim now. But here's what we have to look at. We're doing the opposite of what we want to do for efficiency. We might even have some tolerance issues on these newer engines with thick oil because those tolerances are so tight now. And let's look at why we would care about cold weather starting with the engines we have and these super lightweight oils. These trucks are 1.2 million, 1.3 million with no oil consumption. What more do we want? Why would we try to improve something that doesn't need improving and make a mess of a bunch of other things? Now, we've got an old engine, worn out, burning all kinds of oil. I have been a huge proponent of start dumping Lucas in that thing, and we'll get some more life out of it. But we just have to be specific about why we're talking about these things and when we would do them. We need, in my opinion, we look at today's engines and today's oil. Cold weather starting where is not an issue. It's just not. That we're not seeing anywhere.
Okay, so that brings up another one, Kevin, when it comes to the dosing, for lack of what else to call it. Depends on who you talk to and where you read. Some say 1 gallon of the Lucas for a 10-gallon oil change, which is pretty common. And some say 2 gallon of Lucas for the 10-gallon.
I could say this. Let's just take
Which one is it?
Herschel, let's just take it to a crazy extreme. And we're just going to use logic here. The more worn out the engine is, the more Lucas you could put in. And at some point, it's going to get ridiculous. But if it's really worn out, what would happen if you ran Lucas in it instead of oil?
Well, you'd be in trouble because there's no real base, and
but
the
this
additive
thing,
package isn't there.
We got to remember what we're doing. I get all that, but this engine's worn out. All we're trying to do is keep it on the road another month or so. I'm talking extremes. But the reason you're going to get 100 opinions on dosing is because it's kind of like, how much vitamin D do I need to get my level up? Well, where did you start? How bad off are you? There's so many variables in that question. If you put in 1 gallon of Lucas and your oil consumption goes down some, well, good, we moved in the right direction. If you put in 2 gallons and it goes down a little more, well, maybe we're okay. At some point, I'm just not going to be too concerned about additives and long term, because all I'm using this for in any way is a kind of an emergency situation. If I need Lucas, I better have some money for an in-frame because it's not going to be long.
Right.
Yeah, the old time.
Hey, Eric had something he wants.
Go ahead, Eric.
There's a couple things here. What you said, Kevin, was exactly right. If you take let's say 2 cups, 1 cup has a 10 weight oil and the other cup has gear oil, let's say like an 85 or 90 straight weight. You start pouring them out at the same time, the 90 weight pours out a lot slower because it's thicker in viscosity.
Yep.
The same theory applies on the bearing material, bearing areas, I should say, or any kind of ledges that an oil can hang on, even the cross hatches in the cylinder liners.
Right.
Because it's slower moving, it has more volume and it can hang on those ledges or plateaus a lot longer. That's for the cold startup. As far as the seals not leaking anymore, a lot of oil companies will put in a rejuvenator particle or a chemical into the oil stabilizer that actually reswells the rubber. When rubber is manufactured, it's got a certain percentage of moisture or oil content, whatever it's made out of. Over time, that will evaporate. So what these oil additive companies will do is they'll put that particle back into the chemical, and it'll either swell the rubber up, like if you've ever put in like lacquer thinner on a what do they call that, like the plastics that are not fluorinated. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
If you dump like a chemical on a non-fluorinated thing, it'll swell up and then kind of dissolve. The same theory, I guess, or idea applies here, where it will actually swell the seal up to retake up that layer that shrunk. So it's just like a booster shot, like a electrolyte when you're dehydrated, basically.
Right.
That's how the seals work and how it works on the engine. Now, the number one job of oil is to cool a metallic surface. There is no other reason that oil is manufactured. It's to keep the cooling effect on metal. So when we do that on a cold startup on these newer engines, you're exactly right.
Well, wait,
It
wait,
is the
wait,
worst
wait,
thing for fuel mileage
wait.
because when you hit that starter,
I just want to understand something. I absolutely know that there is a cooling effect, and that's the reason, but there's also a lubrication effect, a film between the two metal parts. And it's not just cooling, it's stopping
yeah,
those
that's the
parts from
number.
touching.
Well, yeah, okay. Maybe I misexplained that, but there's multiple benefactors of oil, but the number one job of it is to cool the metallic surfaces. The next step I should have said is the barrier. It's the protection barrier,
Now,
and that's where we see the nitration value really come into role play.
If we take your explanation of that, of the thickness and it hanging on ledges and things like that, it's absolutely correct. If we combine it with Bruce's example of sitting all winter and still seeing it there, what we're really saying, that's going to stay there indefinitely. Gravity isn't strong enough to break its bond with whatever part it's on, and it's not in Bruce's example, it's going to be there forever. That's not going away. It's not like, some oils in 2 or 3 days, maybe they've drained down. If you've made it 6 or 7 months and there's still oil on that, that's staying on there.
I'm going to blockchain your technology and Bruce's technology here with that statement. Because it stays on there and you hit the starter in the morning, that's more parasitic drag on the crankshaft because now that oil is thicker, it has to push its way through that thicker viscosity. So that's where it is bad for fuel mileage. And on these newer engines with the tighter bearing tolerances, that is exactly correct. And yes, we did used to do this, back in the day when you lost oil pressure, you would jump from a 1030 up to a 1040. You lost oil pressure again, you went from a 1040 to a 2050. I've done it personally in my old Mercury. I had a 65 Comet Cyclone that I was dumb and ran it low on oil, and I basically cavitated the oil pump, but I didn't know any better. I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
So I just kept upping the oil until I got up to 2050 to get my oil pressure back. Wasn't fixing the problem, but it was, buying me time, exactly what you said. So if you want to use the term blockchain, you guys are all correct on the oil and how it affects and everything. So but it is a Band-Aid kind of in that situation.
Yeah. When we go, and I used to talk about that way more than I do now. That used to be a very common topic on the show. Somebody call me and go, man, I'm putting in a gallon of oil every 4,000 miles. What am I going to do? And I'd say two things. You're going to figure out where you're going to come up with $15,000 back then for an in-frame, and you're going to dump Lucas in this thing to slow that oil consumption down and buy us some time. That was a common call. Now, hardly ever talk about that. The modern engines, that's just not an issue for so many reasons. And I had another thought. What was it? Back in our car days, isn't that what STP oil treatment was? Wasn't it just a thickener?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly what it was.
That's what I thought. They may have had some other stuff.
Engine builders would see it build up in the valley where the lifters are. They didn't like that.
No, that's my point. These things have a purpose, but it's usually kind of an emergency, buy yourself some time purpose, and they have some real downsides to them. That's why I would encourage people, don't use this stuff unless you have a reason that it's going to fix. Don't think this is one of those things I can dump in just in case. There's downsides to them. You have to think these things through, and are you using them for the right reason?
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Herschel, anything else? Because we got to wrap this up. I got one more call we're going to take.
Eric just told you the gear problem with the different viscosity, how fast the cup ends and gets empty. Same thing.
Exactly. We were approaching this from all kinds of different examples, and these were all good analogies. You didn't hear me fighting about these analogies. They all make sense.
All right.
Okay. All right. We're running out.
One more call. We're going to North Dakota. Brant, what's on your mind?
Hey, I got a quick question for Bruce. I know he's got a formula for calculating horsepower based on boost, but I was wondering if you had a formula for calculating torque based on boost or anything else.
So the way we figure torque is if you have a 500 horsepower engine, you make it a 600, you gain about 3 foot-pound of torque per horsepower. So it's generally about a 3 to 1 on a dyno. On some engines, it might be 2.5 to 1. So between 2.5 and 3 to 1. So that's how I figure the torque.
But not from boost.
Yeah,
I need to know. I would need to know the torque, the stock torque, and the stock horsepower and the stock boost. If I don't know the engine, and then we need to talk. And this doesn't work on a variable geometry. This is the older style.
And Bruce,
regular turbo.
Bruce,
let me ask you. 4 12.7, but it's got all your go fast parts in it, and I had it dynoed. And it showed 6 1/4 to the ground, but they didn't pull it down below 1,500. So I don't really know what my peak torque was at 1,200.
That's okay.
So they didn't.
So
that's okay. I'd rather them not do that. I'd rather them not do that. Let me do a calculation. You had 6 1/4 to the ground, right?
Yeah. Now
twin screw?
Here's the other thing. Right. The other thing.
So you're about 730. You're about 735 on the flywheel.
Okay, that would kind of make sense because I had fleet air filters in there, and I thought they were like paper. You know, you pull them out, you wash them every year, or throw them out if they're paper, and you're good to go. But I had about 80,000 on them when I ran the dyno, and I ordered another set of fleets so I could rotate them. And when I pulled them out, I couldn't believe how filthy the air filters were. And so when I put my new fleets in, I got 2 pounds of boost right off the bat. So I was pretty impressed, 1, with the fleet air filters, and 2, well, gee, now I want to go run a dyno again because I'm probably getting another 25 horsepower.
Oh, you might. Also, pull the compressor housing off the turbo, wash the compressor wheel with brake clean, a small brush, and clean the compressor housing and polish the volute part that sits up against the wheel. Polish it and make it like a polished aluminum wheel. And you'll gain a couple more pounds too, and you'll gain it faster.
Okay. All right. When the weather breaks and I get to pulling the turbo off and everything, I might have to call you back and have you run me through that again.
Let's explain the physics, because what you just described, Bruce, everything you're doing is reducing mechanical drag.
That's right.
Yeah. So it comes back to physics, and some of these things are easy and we understand it. We're just reducing the mechanical drag. We're making the 2 parts that are not in contact. We hope we have a film, but we're
okay. So
making them both smoother so there is less friction between those parts.
So every spring you should take your.
You were saying
every spring you should take all your piping. Yeah, take your compressor housing off, take all your air piping off, look inside the air filters, look for any signs of rust holes, and wash inside the elbows, the aluminum pipe, the plastic pipe, spray it with white lithium grease, and polish the compressor housing.
Okay.
The part that sticks up against the compressor wheel. Right. And the polish in the center, it's like 3.5 inches. Who is that guy? Is it Bush? That's always at the Louisville truck shows, right where you come into the main entrance. He has almost looks like a ballplex hone, but it's made for polishing inside the holes on the wheels. And that when you put it in a drill and put your aluminum polish on it. That would make it much easier to polish inside there. Or you just put a lot of polish on a red shop rag and hold it in there and spin it around your hand. You follow me?
I had to cut him loose, Bruce, because I had to turn off the phones and get ready to get out of here. We're never going to get out of here. So he said when he gets to that point, he's probably going to call you anyway to make sure he's doing it right. The one thing I wanted to run by you real quick, it kind of fits. We were talking about how competitive we all are. And I know you've competed in all kinds of things, water skiing, and you road raced Corvettes, right?
Right.
So I raced motocross, and in my mind, when you race, that was my experience with racing, was motocross. I practiced 99% of the time and raced 1% of the time. In road racing a car, what percentage were you able to practice?
Not a whole lot.
That's what surprised me. Somebody called me yesterday about dirt track racing. I think it was Herschel, somebody. And we were talking about this, and I made that statement, and I almost said, assuming that you practiced a lot, and Herschel said, you don't get to practice at all. He said, maybe you might get a couple laps to tune things up on the day of the race. He said, but that was so bizarre to me. Well, think about water skiing.
Yeah.
How much time you spent practicing compared to how much time you spent competing. And that to me is always...
We studied...
Go ahead.
We studied the slalom course, and we had video cameras. We studied the slalom course harder than we studied grades 1 through 12.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my friend had a 55-foot houseboat with the television. We would film it, go into the houseboat, and critique it. So
yeah,
we went overboard with on the road racing. Now, keep in mind in Western Pennsylvania. The back roads, a lot of times would be drifting through bends and things like that.
But I was shocked that in dirt track racing, if you want to get into it, like your first experience is going to be in a race.
They actually have practice laps at our local track here now. They just started that.
Did they? That was such a bizarre concept to me. Every sport I've ever been involved in, you spend way more time practicing than you do competing. It's not even close. I never thought about that.
But in road racing, you had to use the public highways, basically.
Yeah, that's back now. They do a lot of that these days. All the drag racing going on, and yeah, getting pretty dangerous now too. That you got cars that can get to 100 miles an hour in about a half a second. I think that's an exaggeration, but it's pretty extreme these days. All right, with that, we could talk about this kind of stuff all day. We've all got to get on with our day. Thank you guys, as always, for doing what you do. We'll do it again next week. We'll see you here tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I have a guest, but I don't know who it is. So we'll see. Tomorrow's Destination Health. We'll see you then. Be safe. Be profitable, be fit and healthy, always do the hard work and master the journey.